Welcome to Sports Scope, the most influential sports talk show in the nation.
What is today, the 19th?
Stay tuned for updates and great sports content.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Real Sports Scope. I'm your host, Robert Butler. Good to be back on the air tonight. Folks, I apologize about our technical difficulties we've had last few days with StreamYard. I've made some adjustments. I think that's going to be okay. Tonight looks like the live show's going out just as planned so far. Got a great show with you for tonight here. Jason Patterson will be back on the program to talk the NCAA tournament there. And he will be back 30 minutes in. I'm going to ask him about Cam Ward. What does he think? Is Cam Ward worth this kind of hype? And, of course, Russell Wilson, now a New York Giant. Now, I'm starting to think the Giants are undervalued, over and under 3.5 wins. Don't ask him about that. Ask him about the tournament, mid-majors, lack thereof it. What does he think about all this chalk here, which means the favorites winning? I'm a big fan of it. I'm going to explain it here in just a minute after the break. A lot to talk about as far as the tournament per se. Calipari, John Calipari, is he more of an underdog coach? So anyways, let's take our first and only break. I'll be back here momentarily, and we will hit the ground running here on the Real Sports Scope.
I'm Mac, CEO of National Streaming Sports and host of the Mac and Jack Sports Show. You're watching the sharp-dressed man and the big story breaker, Robert Butler, on Sports Scope, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern on National Streaming Sports.
Introducing National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk programming that you can access 24/7. For the premier sports talk experience, tap into our Roku channel. Start your mornings with Mac and Jack covering all the weekend sports action. Then pour a cup and enjoy all the sports you can drink on the Coffee and Sports podcast. At midday, talk sports from east to west on the Coast to Coast podcast. Followed at night by some hot girl talk with Prim and Proper Sports featuring Sonia Pearson. Talk boxing on the Gloved Fist. Yankee fans tune in for Start Spreading the News. And there's more on the College Sports Huddle and Sports Scope with Robert Butler. There are 20 podcasts in all and 70 weekly shows giving us a 3.4-star viewer rating. To find us on Roku TV, search for National Streaming Sports on the Roku search bar. Click on the logo and you're in. National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk for America.
All righty here. A few more quick announcements, folks. Next Wednesday, 1 week from today, I want to say it's April 2nd, Sean Pollard will be on the program. I met Sean doing Uber a couple weeks ago when the SEC tournament was going on downtown. He's from St. Louis. He's worked in recruiting, college football recruiting. Seemed like a cool guy. Very, very knowledgeable of the NFL, college football. Going to pick Sean's brain on him. Ask him what does he think of this year's draft and whatnot. So stay tuned. Got another great guest, Sean. I'm very excited to bring Sean. He got back. I was going to try to bring him on this week. He had some issues in school and whatnot. I think Sean used to coach too. But we'll get him on next Wednesday. He's confirmed. He'll be on 30 minutes past the program. And, of course, tomorrow, folks, the Mad New Yorker will be back on the program. We'll be talking about the NCAA tournament. I got to get his take on Russell Wilson going to the New York Giants. Okay, but first, let's start off with this. NIL coming to college basketball has played out the way I have envisioned it. That is, it is just like I envisioned it, and it's just taken a few short years of the NIL. Remember, this started in 2021 when it became the law of the land through the Supreme Court. And now we have NIL in full throttle. This is a blessing in disguise. A lot of people hate it. A lot of the coaches hate it and whatnot. But for the college game, which has been hurt by one and dones, the active one and dones, between the transfer portal and the NIL with college basketball has made this game better. Okay. You've got less major teams in the Sweet 16. Listen, I went to a mid-major. Okay, less mid-major teams. I went to Austin Peay State University. There was a stretch there. We won our conference twice in a row, conference tournament. I want to say they played Louisville one year, blown out, Rick Pitino, then team, and I was okay with that. You know, it is what it is. I didn't care. But the ratings for this are as highest as they've been since 1993. And that's an interesting year because, ironically, that was the year that the Fab Five made it to the national championship we're talking 32 years ago, folks. The national championship between Michigan, against North Carolina, Dean Smith, who coached Michael Jordan, North Carolina's Tar Heels game, the famous or infamous, if you're Chris Webber, timeout that they did not have, gets called the tech there. Michigan loses. North Carolina goes on, wins a national championship. And I'm sure that haunted Chris Webber forever. But those guys stayed. They stayed multiple years. Chris Webber on that Fab Five team, one of the leaders there. Jalen Rose and whatnot, Dwan Howard, you name it. They stayed multiple years. The marketing built up. There was a 30 for 30 made about the Fab Five. I had one of those jerseys saved up. I paid $100 for a Michigan jersey. That was very popular. Those Michigan jerseys made popular by the Fab Five because we saw the same guys stay in college multiple years. You're starting to see that now with mid-major players who would otherwise try to go play semi-pro or even league basketball, do a grad transfer and whatnot, go to a major team, 22, 23 plus years old. And now you're seeing these strong, better basketball teams. The ratings bear it out here, okay? As far as looking out for the little guy, listen, what drives revenue for all basketball is TV, okay? It's streaming. It's TV. It's people watching on the internet, okay? It's not feeling sorry for the small, mid-major teams. It's not a charity case, okay? It's capitalization. And now we're starting to see the ratings. Again, best since 1993. I'm looking forward to this is the most anticipation I've had for the Sweet 16, and I don't know how many years. Probably since Tennessee had Bruce Pearl there, personally. I mean, I've got a friend of mine that lives up in Kentucky that got to go to church with down here. He's trash talking me Monday this week, calling me up, trash talking me about Kentucky and Tennessee playing for the third time, the 2 and the 3 here. Kentucky or Tennessee will play. I think they play Friday. Either way, about that, that's a highly anticipated game. All right. You've got more familiarity. See, the NBA should be watching. Pay attention, Adam Silver. Okay, these players are getting paid now. They're getting NIL deals. Could you imagine Cooper Flagg playing 2 more years? He looked great, by the way, against Baylor. Very competitive game in the first half. Started to settle down, and, of course, the better team pulled away. Looks like that ankle's not bothered Flagg there at all. But couldn't you imagine 2 more years of marketing in the regular season and the NCAA tournament with the guy like Cooper Flagg? the NBA needs to take notice and change that rule to 3 years out, like the NFL, to 3 years out of college or out of high school, or 21, whichever one comes first, to help develop, not just develop, but also market the game, get those ratings up, get these national players more experience here, better coaching, let them be more coached coming into the NBA, in my opinion. And it all shows out. I think the ratings will be record-setting coming into this coming up weekend in the Sweet 16, in my opinion. They've already been the best in 30 years, folks. So that was what I think about that. Okay, more. Let's. I don't have a lot of time because I've got a guest coming on 30 minutes in. John Calipari, the big flashy coach, brings in a lot of NBA prospects every single year, recruits them one and done. Things go south. Speaking of my friend from Kentucky, they go south in Kentucky. They losing to bad mid-major teams at Kentucky. Calipari says, I'm worried more about getting players in the NBA than winning. That didn't go over well with fans here. Things kind of got sour. Now he's back at Arkansas as an underdog coach. Mind you, like he was at UMass, who turned him into a power for a few short years, 96, the Minutemen, Marcus Camby. And, of course, at Memphis, you had Derrick Rose there at Memphis. And Memphis, nothing against Memphis, not really a powerhouse like a Kentucky, a Kansas, a North Carolina, although well above average and a respectable school here. Remember, he gets them to the Final Four. Yes, he won a national championship with Anthony Davis at Kentucky. But mind you, that was way back in 2010. And he coached all the way to 2023. Yeah, things were sour them last 5-6 years, and that's putting it lightly there. Even the fact that he's bringing in those big blue chippers. I just think he's more of an underdog coach, beating teams like beating at Kansas, a blue chipper, and then, of course, beating the higher seed and often compared to, but never sought really as good as the great Rick Pitino, beating him over the weekend. I think that's just simply a better role for him. Did not see that coming. That busted a lot of brackets wide open, beating that 2 seed there in St. John's. The flip side of that, I do think that that maybe they were just a better story. I bought in. Talked about Pitino last week, what a comeback it was for everything he'd been through and the mistakes he made at Louisville and whatnot. Coming back like this, getting the team number 2 seed. They did win the Big East. They did win a conference game. His son got into won a game, got into the tournament. Now his son's the coach now at Xavier, I want to say, Richard Pitino. But the team could not throw a peanut in the ocean, like my dad would say. Shot horrible percentages in that particular game. And, of course, he said so after the game himself. Also, listen, I love Dan Hurley. Love what Connecticut did the last few years. Picked up some driving Uber, which has been my thing here lately, driving a lot of Uber. Picked up some young men from Connecticut and just went on and on about that Connecticut team last year and the year before, covering all these point spreads. Dan Hurley, I wanted to get the soundbite, just didn't get enough of it today. Really ticked off here that said with the refs that they got bad calls and whatnot. And listen, that was a great game, probably the best game of the weekend. Florida's a better team. They were the higher seed, playing the best basketball, and still almost lost that game. Made the big shots late and beat that UConn team here. They were just a better team. Love the competitive edge. As long as you're not disrespecting reporters or condescending or touching players and whatnot, I'm okay with that. I love the passion from Dan Hurley and whatnot. So, great game. Do not think it was rigged one way or the other. I like that edge. I like that level. Kind of reminds me of Jim Calhoun, former Connecticut coach, actually. That guy's going to be a great coach from years to come. Isn't it good to see that, though? Because there's so much in the NBA where guys look like they don't care. And when you see these college games, when guys like Dan Hurley, I thought to myself, I'm so glad this guy stayed in college and did not go to the Lakers. You know, he's great for the college game. But hey, listen, you wouldn't rig, man. The game wouldn't rig. You just got beat, brother. Okay, switching gears here because I've seen that clock is ticking, folks, and I know my man Jason Patterson's never late. He'll be here in less than 15 minutes. So while all that happened over the weekend, and you know, the games are fun. The games were fun. Great win there from Houston. Thought Gonzaga would beat them. Kudos to them. But anyways, when all that happened over the weekend, Russell Wilson has signed with the New York Giants with Jameis Winston. And I was reading up, although there's some conflicting reports now, the odds are all over the place. This come out last night from Bovada official about Vegas odds. Still, even after Russell Wilson had signed with the New York Giants here, very team-friendly, $10 million contract up to 20+ with incentives. Not a bad contract at all for the Giants there. But anyways, Schroeder Sanders, the son of Deion Sanders, is still the favorite to be the number 3 overall pick, with the New York Giants. So I thought that was interesting. Listen, folks, there was another site that said, I want to say this. This is from, let me make sure I get this right. Let me make sure I got this right here. Jordan Raanan, reporter for the Giants. I want to say he's with ESPN. He's saying the Giants win total opened out at a league low 3.5 wins at ESPN Bet. It remains at 3.5 wins, 3.5 wins after the acquisition of Russell Wilson. That is now, I think people are starting to undersell the Giants. That's the lowest I've seen the New York Giants ever. Now, I haven't been reading them for 25 years, but a once proud organization, won the Super Bowl back in 2007, 2008, won in 2011, 2012, both over the New England Patriots there. A very proud franchise. Had Bill Parcells and Bill Belichick on it. For them to have that kind of win, that is just you talk about a super hot seat there for that ownership there, for that general manager there and head coach. I think something like this team has had the lowest expectations there in the NFL. They've got Andrew Thomas supposed to be back there at left tackle here. Russell Wilson, listen, they did get into the play. For as bad as people want to say that he played and whatnot, and I know he wasn't as air quote consistent high-level quarterback at Pittsburgh as ones would like. They did get into the playoffs last year. I think he won some big games last year. Personally, some primetime games there, all things considered, with the Pittsburgh Steelers. But you also got to look at the fact that, he's going to have Malik Neighbors to throw the football to. If they, for whatever reason, do not sign Schroeder Sanders, what if he goes number 2 to Cleveland and the Titans take Cam Ward at number 1? Then you've got Travis Hunter there, which they've already added to their secondary. Remember, they got Javon, I want to say his name is Holland there from Miami, the safety there. So, and they drafted high at cornerback last year. If you threw a Travis Hunter in there with on that secondary, remember they've got Brian Burns there. They've got some front 7 help there on that defensive line. Then you add, say, a Travis Hunter on that secondary with the competent Russell Wilson. Mind you, Daniel Jones got hurt early last year. Things can be often exaggerated one way or the other with these New York teams. They're either the best thing since sliced bread or they're total bums in New York. And it's really somewhere in between. I mean, I think that's a good bet, even if they do take Schroeder Sanders with the number 3 overall pick. And you've got Jameis Winston, Russell Wilson, and Schroeder Sanders. That's an interesting locker room with Brian DeBall. That's a pretty interesting high IQ locker room there, especially with a guy like Schroeder. I'm not out on Schroeder. Listen, you got a Malik Neighbors to throw the ball to. You can interchange a Travis Hunter. Maybe he doesn't play every single snap as a wide receiver. You put him back there at that cornerback position. That's exactly where I would put him. I would put him at corner, and, of course, I would use him in packages. I may even use him for a few series, leave him in for a few series and whatnot. But I think this will get the fans' attention. I think they're going to be better than 3.5 wins. I think this team, they need to plug a few spots there on that offensive line. They need to stay healthy. But now they're really undervalued. That's my whole take from this. They're undervalued. Now, listen, if it don't work, you could try again next year. If they want to trade up with Tennessee and get Cam Ward, the fact that Cam Ward had a great pro day, by all measurements that I've read and saw, he's got a second interview with the Tennessee Titans. That really ups the ante for possibly a New York Giants to try to make a play and go up there and get him. Same thing for the Cleveland Browns. But for the Giants per se, I think this is the kind of signing that will get people to show up to the game. You're not going to have empty stadiums to start the season. I think the stock is a little too far down on the New York Giants is my big take from here. But we'll see how it works out. We'll see how it works out. I'm not saying he's going to get them to the playoffs or anything, but he makes this team viable. And it could be a pretty good teacher for a young quarterback if they go that direction. If they do end up losing 4 games or winning 3 or 4 games, that puts them in a position next year to possibly upgrade at quarterback again. As I mentioned before, it's no guarantee that Arch Manning is going to come out in the 2026 draft. I would probably bank on him coming out in the 2025 draft. Okay? Cam Ward, listen, I'm more and more impressed with what I see out of Cam Ward. I've heard Mel Kiper, ESPN, say he doesn't like how he sits in the pocket too long and tries to wiggle out of things. I can understand that, but arm strength, decision-making, experience. Cam Ward will be 23 years old in May. He played at intermediate school. I went to community college, transferred to Washington State, played there a few years, then transferred to Miami. And listen to this, folks. His numbers, Cam Ward's numbers. And I said this. I called him Jaden Daniels light last week. Okay. And Jaden Daniels out of LSU last year, or his Jaden Daniels, his senior season here, per se, at LSU. This is Jaden Daniels' numbers here. All right. Jaden Daniels, 40 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, completion percentage. Where's his completion percentage at? I want to see where that number is. 72%, 66.3 career. Okay. Keep that in mind. All right. Now let's go to last year at Miami for Cam Ward. All right. 39 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 60 his career completion percentage, very similar at 67.2, 66% completion percentage for his career at Miami. Okay, so essentially you've got one more touchdown that Jaden Daniels at LSU threw, all right, and you have 6 more rushing touchdowns. Other than that, you got identical numbers practically. You've got practically identical numbers. And mind you, Brian Thomas played with Jaden Daniels his senior year, and Malik Neighbors. Brian Thomas is this guy that had a great year, just like Malik Neighbors. Malik Neighbors, unbelievable year with this Giants. Just talking about the Giants just a minute ago. And Brian Thomas, nobody's really not talking about him because he's playing in Jacksonville, set the world on fire in Jacksonville. He's a go-to. That's why they moved off Christian Kirk. You see what I'm saying? That's why they moved off Christian Kirk, Brian Thomas. So that's who Malik Neighbors was throwing through, or that's who Jaden Daniels was throwing to last year. I don't see any of those big mega stars or any of those Miami players going to go high in the draft. So you could tell, and although I love Jaden Daniels, got all the way to the NFC Championship game, won Rookie of the Year. I don't think there's a big gap there between Jaden Daniels and Cam Ward. So if you're Tennessee and you're looking at this, the fact that they have upgraded their offensive line, they gave a big contract to Dan Moore, pretty big, decent-sized contract for left tackle there. They've added a guard there, former Detroit Lion there at the guard position, along with the players that they've already drafted and whatnot. The more I think about it, I say just take a chance with the guy. You know, take a chance with the guy. Listen, if it don't work out, you just try it again. Because as I mentioned before, there's no guarantee that Arch Manning is going to come out next year. There's no guarantee, although he looks great at times, that Nico would from Tennessee will be even ready. Those are the top 2 guys that are being discussed. Now, there's a guy from South Carolina. He could explode off the scene. Maybe he turns out to be a great player. But you start looking at that, and or maybe Carson Beck has a big comeback year. I don't know. He was sought out being the number 1 pick. Remember, he transferred to Miami. Let's see how that plays out this year. But it's no guarantee that next year is going to be this big, awesome class per se, you know? So it's something to monitor. I'm leaning towards just take the chance. Just take the chance there and go ahead and draft. Take the chance and go ahead and draft Cameron Ward. And I was just thinking, I hope that I sent the link right there to Jason Patterson from Pig Trail Sports, which I did because I see him popping up backstage here Jason Patterson, Pig Trail Store. Let me have a round. Crowd loves you, brother. How you doing tonight, man?
I am doing excellent. How you doing, Robert?
Oh, man, I'm doing great, man. I was just going on about I'm getting more and more sold on Cam Ward going to Tennessee by the day, which I'll get to you in just a little bit. Jason Patterson, Pig Trail Nation. Hey, man, let me ask you something. Let's go to that tournament first, though, brother.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the lack of mid-majors getting into the Sweet 16?
I really feel like the tournament finally turned out the way that a lot of folks thought that it would.
Yeah.
There's been so many years where you've got folks that are saying, okay, it's going to be chalk, first 4 seeds, this, that, the other. You always expected maybe 1 or 2 lower seeds, a 10, 11, and 12. Very rarely it's really hard to kind of pin where that could happen. But for the first time in a long time, like you said, there's no mid-majors. I really felt like Gonzaga was misseeded for the simple fact that there were so many SEC teams that they had nowhere else to put them. So they gave the edge to Missouri to give them a 6 and then put Gonzaga as an 8. I felt like that should have been switched. But again,
man. Yeah, Gonzaga let me down. I actually had them upsetting Houston. That was one of my upsets, but it didn't happen, obviously.
Yeah, and that's one of those things where you thought if there weren't so many SEC teams, I think that there would have been a little bit more balance as far as that goes, and I thought you might have seen a little bit more of the mid-majors making those moves. But at the end of the day, whenever you see those mid-majors not making the Sweet 16, that tells you that NIL has had a profound effect on the major schools. I don't know if this is something that is going to come to fruition in the future, but you've got some schools that are basketball heavy, basketball only, that are in D1. Gonzaga is one of them.
Yeah.
That have the resources to put in there in that school, into that program, kind of like a major almost. I think that there's only a few that can do that. And I see that may be happening because whenever you when you start to have rev share, where's Gonzaga going to put all of that money? Because if they're getting X amount of dollars, they don't have a football team that they have to. I know I'm going heavy Gonzaga here for a second, but
no, it's okay.
They don't have money to put towards a football team. If they do, it's going to be very little because, again, like Wichita State, for instance, they don't have a football team. They're a mid-major.
Yeah.
They have the autonomy to be able to dump money into these basketball programs and maybe start getting some of the guys that are going to these majors and throwing a boatload of money at them in their eyes, boatload. Arkansas, for instance, Kentucky, Texas, throwing $1 million at a guy is almost commonplace. Now you're going to start to see some of these mid-majors, $750,000, $900,000, maybe even $1 million for a player. They may have that now with all of this rev share that comes up over the summer.
The rev share. Yeah, that's interesting. Do you see this as a bad thing? Or I think it's a good thing, personally. The ratings, by the way, I don't know if you heard this, the highest ratings since these first 2 rounds since 1993. That was the year, ironically, Chris Webber with the phantom timeout that he didn't have, that ultimately lost the national championship to Carolina. That's players we followed for years. I had one of those jerseys. It cost me $100, but I had a Michigan Fab Five jersey. I love that. I thought that was pretty cool. It's hip. But we got I think that for marketing purposes, I think it's great. In ratings, it's awesome, man. What are your thoughts about the idea? It may be a good thing for players to stay longer in college because of NIL and transfer portal.
So if you look,
or is it a bad thing? I don't know.
Yeah, if you look at some of these teams, there's teams out there, and if I'm not mistaken, it's Texas. Their roster is older than the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Really?
Yes.
I mean, Clip, that's a good stat, man. Is that serious? Is that really?
Yes,
and they're still not playing this weekend.
Exactly. So you have some of those things, and this is what it baffles the college fans' mind a little bit, in that you have players that go to your school, for instance, like let's say Arkansas, for instance. Barry Dunning Jr. goes to South Alabama. Joseph Pinion, Darian Ford go to Arkansas State. Chance Moore went to Missouri State, then was at Duquesne. Now he's back in the portal. All of those guys are in the portal now.
Yeah.
With some of these players that fans are able to follow for 2, 3, 4 years, and they're following the player and not the jersey, gives you a little bit more invested tie-in with it. And I think that's why you're starting to see ratings, because not because of the team itself, but because the players that they've been following, they've gotten to know, they've met before, they've gotten autographs, they've shook the hands, they said the highs. And when you start to get invested into a player, you start to bounce around team to team with them. You may not buy the jersey, you may not buy the jacket, but you're still going to follow. And that follow is going to be with your eyes on that television. And that's why I think that's where the ratings are coming through the roof.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, and I said this at the beginning of the program, and I've been saying this for years, but I think Adam Silver needs to get with these owners, Players Association, and adjust that NBA minimum age to 21 or 3 years out of high school minimum. Whichever comes first, we would see more of this. I mean, I think it would be awesome. For the marketing perspective, could you imagine Cooper Flagg 2 more years at Duke? You know they would create a lot of resentment from around the nation. I hate Christian Laettner. Remember the 30 for 30?
That was great.
I mean, bring that all the way back, you know?
So let's look at college baseball for a second. The reason why I want to pivot to that is because that is the same. That's the exact rule that they have. You don't go pro, you stay for 3 years. Now, baseball, for instance, in the state, in the SEC and NCAA for that matter, was an atrocious number. They were having to split scholarships like quarters and halves between players to make that work. They're starting to get that now. They're starting to get the full scholarship for each player.
Yeah.
The point I'm making is that college baseball's done less and made it work.
Yeah.
Versus college basketball, college football, for instance.
Yeah.
I don't know if that could happen, but I think that if it is pushed, I think that that's when you're going to start to see an NCAA Players Association.
Oh, wow.
Because when you start to have that happen and there's no representation on any of these schools with the players in mind, that's when you start to have litigation. And I've been yelling this from the mountaintops since this summer. Hell, I think we've even talked about that, where there's going to be a player rep on each campus. Now, it may be to a point where you have maybe the 3 major sports, each one of them has a player rep.
Yeah.
To bargain or to collectively bargain for the athletes and advocate for them, because at the end of the day, those general managers that these schools are hiring are not going to. So
they got some power too. Andrew Luck fired the coach in Stafford.
Exactly. And I had somebody reach out to me and say, hey, do you think Andrew Luck could step in? I said, there is no way in hell that Andrew Luck is going to, because his tenure is going to be longer as the GM than the coach.
Oh, man. But don't you think it'd be a good idea for the NBA to do? Because you get more player development, less babysitting, and you get in the marketing aspect that the NBA ratings have been way down. Caitlin Clark outdrew them, you know?
Well, and if you do move to 3 years, you effectively kill the G League.
Yeah, which ain't doing nothing anyways.
Yeah, I mean, only thing it's doing is it's giving each team, it's extending each team's roster by 10, because all of those guys that are on the G League are on 2 ways anyway. Yeah. So you can bring them up and set them down as you want. But I think if you do effectively move to having college basketball players stay 3 years, you're going to have to expand the roster to where they can have two-way guys on the bench that don't count against the however many it is that you have.
Yeah. And maybe the numbers will be so big that it will push the mid-majors back up some, you know?
Yeah.
So,
well, you're not going to have guys going into the G League at 18 years old anymore.
yeah, we look at all these. I mean, I know Flag is getting a lot of hype. He's played well. I like that. Baylor looked competitive for a half. It looks like he's getting over that ankle injury. What are your thoughts on John Calipari upsetting St. John's? Is Calipari more of an underdog coach?
Yes, he is 100% underdog coach.
On that, yeah.
I was gonna say, man, where you're at in Tennessee, you know exactly where I'm gonna go with this.
Yeah.
Man. They do have that underdog mentality. Yeah. I saw something in this team that I haven't seen in a couple of years, where this team has embodied Calipari's identity. His everything that he says. A couple years ago, indulge me for a second.
Yeah, go ahead.
A couple years ago, Arkansas was playing Kentucky here.
Okay.
That was the one where Calipari got tossed after arguing fouls. Probably the loudest that Bud Walton has been in 25 years.
Wow. And
Calipari's team had a slim lead. Arkansas had all of the momentum, every single ounce of it in that arena. You know what happened?
What?
Cal's team came back, took the lead, and won.
Man.
After all of that adversity. That was the same thing that I saw on Saturday against St. John's.
Yeah.
St. John's made that 16-6 run. Arkansas was down 3-4 points.
Yeah.
Came back, took the lead, and then after halftime, scored 8 unanswered after that. So, and extended that lead. Yes. There were some things that Arkansas was having a problem with, but I'm going to give big props to Jonas Adu, playing for 4 fouls the last 8-9 minutes of the game and not fouling out. You saw
that takes a lot of discipline to do that.
It does, and that's a salty veteran for you down low. That's effective. So I like this matchup against Texas Tech just for the simple fact that.
Do you like Arkansas to get the win?
Yes, because the Bigs. I feel like the Bigs match up better against Texas Tech than they would most teams. Texas Tech's the tallest guy, 6'8", that they play. I understand he scores.
Okay.
But he hasn't seen the length that Arkansas has either. And that's what has been touted from the Kansas game, the St. John's game. Even Rick Pitino said it himself. We're not going to see the length that we normally see, or we're going to see the length that we don't normally see against Arkansas. And I think it's going to be the same way with Texas Tech.
Was St. John's more of a great story rather than a great team? I mean, even Pitino said himself, man, I can't believe we shot the ball that bad. You know?
Unfortunately, there's days where your team is just couldn't throw the damn thing in the ocean.
I couldn't throw a peanut in the ocean.
No, couldn't do it. And it, effectively, I mean, your top scorer was 3 for 17 from the field. I mean, that's some tough onions right there, man.
Man. What do you think? What is this guy's name? Did Dan Hurley, was he right about UConn, or simply was Florida the better team?
I think Florida was the better team.
Okay, me too.
Guys like him, the fire never leaves.
Yeah.
The passion never leaves. And you have to look at the heat of the battle and the heat of the moment. And I understand that there was some ruckus stuff that happened afterwards. I do believe that there were some authorities that got called into.
Okay.
There's an investigation that's going on. But for threats, but there's no place in sports for that.
Right.
But what happened on the court and how he acted, I mean, you saw Eric Musselman do it over at the Hawaii tournament against San Diego State. I mean, he went nuts as well. I mean,
yeah.
I mean,
there was a guy, I can't remember his name. You might be able to remember, but he did this to Calipari years ago at another school. Black guy.
Oh, I know exactly who you're talking about. He was a coach at Temple.
Yeah, John Chaney, maybe.
It was John Chaney, because John Chaney at a press conference saw Cal and then tried to attack him. I remember.
Yeah.
I watched the damn thing. Yeah,
that was a while back. But you know something? I miss that kind of fiery exchange, as long as the coach is not being like Greg Popovich towards the reporters, just being salty for no reason with the reporters. But just that level of, I really want to win so bad. Like Jim Calhoun, former acting like he's going to throw the ball at the referee, but he just kind of catches himself.
Yeah.
I kind of miss that, as long as it doesn't go overboard. You know what I'm saying?
And you know, back in the day, coaches could get away with more than coaches do these days.
Yeah. Bob
and
Knight,
I think that's why you've had some of the turn as far as how the perception and the actions and the words are whenever it's on or off the court, for that matter, because everybody's got a cell phone, everybody's got a camera, everybody's got a recorder. And so unless unless that's just your personality and you're willing to live and die by that ship, that's on you. But I think that you can still have that in sports. Mm-hmm. It's just, I think it's got to be toned down a lot more, just because of the accessibility with not only fans but support staff, players, whoever it is. If there's something that does happen that goes wrong, it's going to be caught and there's going to be proof.
Yeah. You know something, I was thinking, I'm so glad he did not take that Laker job. You know, you would have never seen that kind of fire out of him with the Lakers. It just, I don't think he would have been comfortable coming out like that and being fiery like that, because, you know, coaches there have so much limited power in the NBA. You know,
I mean, because the power is in the players' hands, because the players are the ones who make that thing work. They're the wins and the losses. Right. The coaches account for about 10, maybe 15% of the wins.
Right. That's what I think, man.
Because at the end of the day, it's all on how you execute and who is in the right spot at the right time, which that's up to the coach.
Yeah.
But if you got a guy on the bench that needed to be in, there's that 10 to 15%. X's and O's, 10 to 15%. That's it. Other than that, I don't think that, and I think that, you know, Dan made a great choice in staying at Connecticut, because when you look at it, you're going to be taking orders from LeBron James.
Right.
And anybody and everybody in the front office. And you're going from
and they're picking the players. You're not picking the players.
No. You're given the hand that's dealt to you, and you're going to have to deal with it. Yeah. Now, it's nice whenever you have a Luka Doncic that falls in your lap. But, you know, he went from complete autonomy to a team to stripped of that autonomy. And I feel like that was the ultimate decision in the back of his mind that he was thinking of the whole entire time. Am I willing to give this up to have this platform? And it just wasn't for him.
I'm so glad. I don't know about you, but man, I just, I'm not even Catholic. Stay in Connecticut, dude. Stay in Connecticut, you know? Don't put up with that crap in L.A. Are there any teams since we've had the tournament that look superior to you that are not what you thought they were, and look like a team that maybe have a shot at a national championship?
So there's one team,
what you thought it was.
I think that there's one team that I thought would have a decent shot that I've found that they've got chinks in the armor. That's going to be Alabama.
Okay.
That's really surprised me a lot. Arizona's everything I thought they were. I think that they have a chance. I do believe that Houston is everything that we thought they were. They have a chance. I still think that the odds-on favorites, Florida, one, because of their guard play. That's what happens in the NCAA tournament, is that guard play rules.
Yes.
But when you've got six guys over the height of 6'9" and above, you cannot guard against that length unless you can match it. If you can match it, then you got a chance. But there's not, I haven't seen a team yet that can match it. Hell,
Did you
they went
have
to Ark-
Florida winning it, Jason?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. I have Duke over
do.
Florida, but who knows, man? Who knows? I got
Well,
Florida national championship. I think
you
they're
know-
that good too, you know?
And honestly, Duke kind of reminds me of Illinois when Bill Self was there, where he had
Yeah.
a couple of big dudes that you could, put out there, but Florida can rotate
Mhm.
guy after guy after guy after guy. And before you know it, the two that you have, like for instance, Duke, they've got two bigs that are going to get, if they face Florida, Todd Golden's going to have them, every 4 or 5 minutes. Okay.
Yeah.
Next one goes out. Next one goes out. Basically, it's going to be almost like a hockey shift.
Man. Well, Florida, yeah, they had their hands full against Connecticut. Maybe that was their biggest foe, other than maybe Duke in the national championship, if both of them make it.
Yeah.
Well,
and look at Connecticut. They had heavy guard play, and they took Florida. No, sorry. Was it
Connecticut, Florida, yeah.
Yeah, they took Florida to the wire with that.
Man.
Again, heavy guard play. I still feel like that Florida is going to probably come out of this region. I'd love to see Arkansas do it.
Man, right?
Florida played Arkansas a few months ago in January, and it was less than a 10-point game with about 5 minutes left. But guess what happened? Florida's length started getting to Arkansas. They started to wear down, and they took an 8 or 9 point lead, extended it to 15, got to 12, but never got any closer.
That's how it looked against Tennessee at the end. Tennessee shot the ball really well in the SEC championship game, but a lot of blocks at the rim. Who do you like in that Tennessee-Kentucky game, man? That feels like the best game of the weekend for me.
That's going to be a very intriguing game. I feel like Tennessee probably is going to come out of it for the fact that their defense is probably going to be able to stifle that Kentucky offense.
Okay.
I really feel like it. Kentucky. I feel like that Tennessee is going to try to make this a really muddy game. They're not going to let Kentucky get out and run like they like. Yeah. They're going to keep that thing down because Kentucky's going to try to score 80, 90 points on you.
Yeah.
Tennessee, on the other hand, they're with the way that Kentucky runs that offense, I feel like that they're going to try to keep that into a 60s game. If they can keep it in the 60s, Tennessee's got all the chances in the world.
I noticed they're favored. And I know Kentucky beat them twice in the regular season, but I feel like I'm like you. I think Tennessee's playing better basketball. Man, I got to ask you, what's your thoughts about, especially the NFL real quick?
Yeah.
Russell Wilson and all this news, this sides with the Giants, and the Giants win total, Jason, still at 3.5. Man, are they a buy or what? Wow.
No, if you want to make some money in Vegas, that probably is going to be your play for right now. And here's the thing: Jameis Winston is going to be his backup.
Yeah. And
so
I've read conflicting reports, but one report says that Schroeder Sanders is still the favorite to be drafted by Washington. So you would have Schroeder Sanders, Jameis Winston, and I mean, what a quarterback room, you know?
Yeah, that could be real fun there. But I don't know if Shedeur is going. First off, Deion's going to dictate where Shedeur goes, because here's the deal. Deion Sanders is playing Archie Manning right now, because if you think about it, back in the 2003 draft, Eli gets drafted to go to San Diego. Yeah, he doesn't want Eli to go to San Diego, so he says, "Okay, well, you can draft him. He's not coming." Before you know it, guess what happens? Ryan Leaf gets drafted. There's a swap, and all is said and done.
I wouldn't Leaf. It was
no.
Phillip Rivers.
Phil Rivers, that's right. Well, I mean, both sides kind of worked out on that. But still,
That's ironic because Ryan Leaf ended up going to the Chargers too.
Yeah.
How ironic was that? And then Peyton, the Chargers were right around both of the Mannings.
Yeah.
That's really interesting there. So what do you think it's going to add some wins? So I think Wilson, he's a little bit underrated at this point.
Oh man, he's got some good receivers out there in New York.
Malik Neighbors, man.
Dude. You know what the best the best compliment for a quarterback of, and listen, I understand that people really crapped on Russell Wilson the last couple of years, but
Yeah.
you give him some wide receivers that have great skills like Malik Neighbors.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna help you win some ball games real easily.
Yeah.
And they gotta do something with that backfield.
Yeah.
If they don't do anything with that backfield, you might as well. You basically are cutting off one of Russell Wilson's feet, because if you don't have a great running game to complement him,
Supposed to be
that's what happened in Denver
for backs.
Yeah,
Supposed to be deep at running back. Maybe Henderson will go. The guy from Ohio State. Maybe he'll fall to him. What's your thoughts about Cam Ward, man? He seems to be a heavy favorite. I made the comparison. If you look at his stats, his last year at Miami versus Jalen Daniels, they're virtually identical except for the rushing touchdowns by Daniels, man.
Yeah, and it's always nice when you're playing in great weather.
Yeah.
Some of these SEC schools, I mean, they're somewhat okay. I mean, look at Ohio State. They had some crappy weather towards the end of their season too. He benefited from playing in 12 months of great weather.
Yeah.
That really
Daniels,
helps.
look what he did last year. I mean, the NFC Championship game.
Exactly. He had some great pieces around him. Now, that's where I worry about if he does go number one to the Titans. Because if you look at it, backup quarterback, Tim Boyle,
right.
Allen,
Levis.
You're going to put him on a pedestal saying, okay, by the way, not only are we going to expect you to go out and win from day one, there's an okay backup that's still not going to be able to move the ball very well down the field. So we're going to be hamstringing you on top of bringing you in. And so that's a really hard pill to swallow. That's why I kind of scratched my head a little bit whenever I saw Tennessee bring both of those guys in.
Yeah.
There's other people on the market that they could have brought in to help him and help bring him along.
Right.
I feel like anytime you bring in a rookie quarterback into the NFL, they need to sit a year.
Yeah.
They need to get used to the speed, the terminology, the checks, the changes, everything.
Is he worthy of the top pick, or would you go elsewhere if you were Tennessee?
If I was Tennessee, I'd trade out of that thing as fast as I could. I believe in draft picks. I also believe in future.
Yeah.
There is just as I really feel like in an NFL draft, a guy that you draft first round, there's also value in 4. There's also a value in the 4th.
Yeah.
That you can bring in and have just as much of effectiveness. So if I've got the number 1 pick every day, I'm drafting it. I don't care. There is only a couple of players in our lifetime that you and I have seen play that's worth being a number 1 overall, like Peyton Manning, for instance, or Andrew Luck. Some of those guys that are a sure shot winner. Yeah. Now, if you don't have that, you better be getting the hell out of that pick. You should be gearing up for the next 2 years, because what one guy could possibly set you back 5, you could trade out and get 4 and 5 picks out of that whole deal between a 3-team trade, and then stuff your roster over the next 2 years with great talent.
I was talking, I've got a guest coming on next week. This guy works in recruiting. He's out of St. Louis. And we were talking about that Philadelphia model, just stack and stack and stack and stack. And if you got your ownership behind you, the way that Lori is behind Roseman, the general manager up there in Philadelphia, that model, you don't have to have that all-world quarterback. Nothing against Jalen Hurts, but he's not being compared to a Joe Burrow or Josh Allen. He was a 2nd-round pick.
Yeah.
But look how good that team is. I mean, they're just flush. They were flushed with talent, man. But the other side is, but if you do hit, you get a Jayden Daniels. So understand both sides of it. If you get that, but if you get that big offer, which I've been hearing now that he's been put on a pedestal a little bit, Cam Ward, and those numbers, he must be doing really good in these interviews. Maybe they can get that 26 and 27. My thing about if you get a 26 first-round pick, I'm not sure Arch Manning's going to go because he's only got 1 full year of starting. You know, his brothers, his uncles played. They had multiple years of starting in college.
I really feel like Arch is probably going to play 2 years at Texas when it's all said and done.
Yeah.
Because the family understands the value of the maturity process.
Yeah.
Or the maturation process in college. And you don't have a family. And I'm not trying to be, I'm trying not to talk badly about anybody in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
It's just that the dynamic and the optics and the point of view that this family's looking at his future is vastly different than some others. Because you have some families that are saying, hey, if he's going to be if he's going to be a first-round draft pick, you need to get out of here.
Yeah.
You may not be ready yet, but you go to the NFL and get ready there instead.
Get the money, yeah.
But the thing is that you've also seen more quarterbacks just get shredded mentally, not physically, mentally.
Yes.
To where you don't. I mean, look at Josh Rosen, for instance.
Yeah.
I mean, dude had everything, and he even had family that supported him in staying. Because I mean, for his family, it wasn't a money issue. He was ready. He felt like he was ready. He may have just got some bad inference,
right?
And going to certain teams also dictates how your future goes, because it could be a great situation, it could be a bad situation, and that's where I feel like if a player, and I've kind of thought about this for a while, if a player goes to the NFL, it's not the right fit. You went through 2 head coaches, 3 offensive coordinators, and you're shell shocked. I think that there should be a player option out of that after that second year for them to say, you know what, this isn't working for me. I think that we need to go ahead and move forward to a different team that fits me better. And I feel like that's where the players should have a little bit of power as far as that goes, because whenever you get to the NFL, you're looking at 6-7 years max.
Right.
And then after that, that's just gravy. But you have 6 to 7 years to be able to capitalize on that. And if you can't, I think that the player should have the option after year 2 to find a situation that's better for him.
Yeah. Yeah, Chad, you're right. Somebody's going to get cut in Tennessee, and somebody will probably get cut in New York if Schroeder Sanders gets drafted. Go ahead and plug your shows, brother.
Yep.
Pig Crowd Nation.
Tomorrow night, live at Torchy's Tacos. We'll be live for the Hogville.net football, the Arkansas football report with Otis Kirk, myself also as well, and then also do the Arkansas baseball the Arkansas Diamond report, and baseball, softball, women's basketball. So yeah, lots of moving and coming and going as far as that goes. Arkansas lost a real head scratcher last night to Missouri State.
Man.
Arkansas had a 12-8 lead going into the top of the 9th and lost 13-12 in 10 innings.
Woo! Bad relief pitching there. Somebody's tired.
It was bad pitching all around, man. I'm going to tell you what. You had a 5th-year senior that faced 6 batters. 6 batters got on base, and 4 runs were scored.
Oh, Lord. Man.
Oh, yeah.
Jason Passon, buddy, I appreciate you coming on. And maybe we can talk about the Chiefs draft pick here in the next month or next time you come on. Maybe bring you on before the draft.
Sounds
and
good.
See what you think, man, what you hearing.
Yep, we'll do. Sounds good.
All right,
look
brother.
forward to it,
Let
man.
me give you a good standing ovation. Appreciate you, buddy.
Anytime. Thanks, Robert.
See you, man. Now, tomorrow, folks, I'll be back here with the Mad New Yorker. We'll go over this same round of questioning. I love to hear what the Mad New Yorker have to say about the Russell Wilson thing. I think people are a little down on the guy. Actually, I think that they're a little better than 3.5 wins, but we'll see. Thank you, Chad. Have a good night, everybody. Good to be back on. Thank you. And if you like the show, please share the show. And we will see you tomorrow here on The Real Sports.